my name is Leslie Rodriguez, and today my partner will present to you the piece The Slave Ship.
The artist of our piece is Joseph Mallord William Turner, who is a Royal Academist who was born on April 23rd, 1775, and died on December 19, 1851. He was an English Romantic painter, printmaker, and watercolorist. He is known for his expressive coloring, imaginative landscapes, and turbulent and often marine paintings. He left behind more than 550 oil paintings, 2,000 watercolors, and over 30,000 works on paper. Turner is perhaps the best loved English Romantic artist. He became known as the painter of life because of his increasing interest in brilliant colors as the main constituent in his landscapes and seascapes. Intensely private, eccentric, and reclusive, Turner was a controversial figure throughout his career. He became more pessimistic and morose as he got older, especially after the death of his father in 1829. When his outlook deteriorated, his gallery fell into despair and neglect, and his art intensified. He lived in squalor and poor health from 1845 on and died in London in 1851, aged 76. Here we can see other works made by Joseph Mallord William Turner. We have The Fighting Temeraire, 1838, an oil on canvas, and The Burning of the Houses in Parliament in 1835, oil paint.
And now we will be discussing the movement, Romanticism. Romanticism is an artistic and intellectual movement that originated in Europe towards the end of the 18th century, or 1800 to 1850. Romanticism was characterized by its emphasis on emotion and individualism to amplify experience. It granted a new importance to experiences of sympathy, awe, wonder, and terror, in part by naturalizing such emotions as responses to the beautiful and the sublime. Turner deployed many techniques typical to Romantic painters. In this painting, he does not rely on defined brushstrokes. This approach makes the painting appear blurry. What's more, the most vibrant colors can be identified in the orange around the sun and in some of the blue in the ocean. This technique is typical of Romantic art as it is ultimately concerned with nature and the power it has over humankind. Furthermore, Turner reveals the power of nature by not making the ship the main focus, but the sun and the ocean, which are the most prominent aspects of the painting.
The piece we are covering here is The Slave Ship, Slavers Driven Overboard, the Dead and Dying, Typhoon Coming On, painted by Joseph Mallord William Turner in 1840, oil on canvas. It can be found in the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and it was painted in London.
And now a timeline having to do with our piece. In 1783, Saun's voyage that killed 132 slaves by throwing them overboard had set sail. Then, in 1807, the British Parliament passed an act to abolish the transatlantic slave trade. In 1833, Parliament passed an act for the abolition of slavery throughout the British colonies, converting enslaved people into apprentice laborers and taking steps to protect their work and well-being. In 1840, Turner exhibited this picture at the Royal Academy to coincide with the World Anti-Slavery Convention held in London. And finally, in 1850, as part of the compromise, the Fugitive Slave Act was amended and the slave trade in Washington, D.C. was abolished.
Here is some history of the artist and this painting. This painting is one of Turner's most celebrated works. It is a striking example of the artist's fascination with violence, both human and elemental. He based the painting on an 18th century poem that described the slave ship caught in a typhoon and on the true story of the Zong, a British ship whose captain in 1781 had thrown overboard the sick and dying enslaved people so that he could collect insurance money available for those lost at sea. Turner captures the horror of the event and the terrifying grandeur of nature through the hot, churning color and the light that merges the sea and the sky. Here we can see the poem that Turner paired with this picture that he presented in the Royal Academy in 1840. It is Fallacies of Hope, 1812. Aloft all hands strike the top masts and belay. Yon angry setting sun and fierce edged clouds declare the typhoon's coming. Before it sweeps your deck, throw overboard the dead and dying, ne'er heed their chains. Hope, hope, fallacious hope, where is thy market now? Here are some more formal elements in the subject of the piece. First impression that the painting creates is an enormous, deep red sunset over a stormy sea, which is an indication of an approaching typhoon. The typhoon is further indicated by an approaching, dramatized storm cloud creeping into the visible space from the left, with its rich colors sprawling towards an unstained sky. Near the top left of the painting, we can see, upon closer inspection, a ship sailing off into the distance. The ship is identifiable as a type of fast vessel used by slavers to escape Navy patrollers by its low, lean lines and clipper bow. The masts of the ship are red, matching the blood red color in the sky and its sickly copper color of the water, which serves to blur the lines between various objects in the painting. The ship's sails are furled, revealing that it's preparing for the typhoon. This ship is blurred into the background because it is not the main subject of the painting and just something that is occurring in the background. We can see in the bottom left of the painting smaller, dark limbs projecting from the stormy seas, surrounded by loose chains. This alludes to the numerous slaves that were thrown off the ship and left to drown. Trails of fish swimming in the water around the drowning slaves can be observed, augmenting the scene's turmoil. These fish were eating the slaves that were being thrown overboard, and so were the birds that are also circling the slaves on top. In the bottom right of the painting, we can see a single dark-skinned leg that juts out of the water with an iron chain locked around its ankle, with an illustration of bare breasts. A chaotic swarm of seagulls and fish surrounds the leg. One fish is shown approaching with a frenzy and its mouth wide open, and it also has blood on it. This violence is enhanced by the spare red blotches around the head of the fish, which also indicates blood. This quadrant is supposed to show what each individual person is experiencing. They're experiencing such disregard and such terrible treatment and were treated as if they were just live bait or garbage. They each were suffering and being eaten alive after they were being thrown overboard. What's more, their chains were also causing them to drown more because they were heavy with iron.
The AP themes you could connect this piece to could include death, violence, the visual conceptual, narrative art, and social commentary. Social commentary only began after the 18th century, which matches up with his timeline, and we know that this piece was made to comment on the anti slavery movement. Visual and conceptual refers to the piece's unique nature of drawing you in with its mesmerizing and really beautiful colors, but once you take a closer look and really focus on the concept of the piece and what events are taking place, you notice that it's actually more of a horrific scene. In my opinion, this piece was included in our catalog because it's the first of its kind, with the way it draws attention to certain issues. If you were trying to speak out against anti slavery, the artist could have drawn a horrific and more impactful scene, but instead he decides to trick the viewer with a beautiful atmosphere and view, yet still calls attention to the issues of slavery. The work seems not to have been commissioned, but painted by Turner out of his own sense of outrage and in order to stir others to the anti-slavery cause. The use of deep reddish colors instigates that feeling of outrage and anger that should be felt for the people that have and are suffering. That's all for now. A big thank you to my partner Laura for doing such in-depth research about